Russian President Vladimir Putin arrives today in New Delhi for a private dinner this evening before more meetings tomorrow, including with India's Prime Minister, with defense and energy on the cards. India just hours prior securing a $2 billion deal to lease a nuclear-powered submarine from Russia. Both leaders will reportedly discuss sales of fighter jets and air defense systems, while Moscow hopes to keep selling its discounted oil supplies. Although India's sustained purchase has strained ties with Washington and prompted US President Donald Trump to hike tariffs on New Delhi. Neha Poonia joins us live from New Delhi, and Dasha Chernyshova is covering this story for CNA live from Moscow. Neha, let's start with you. We just mentioned that Delhi coming for months now under pressure from the Trump administration not to buy oil from Russia. It is continuing to do that. How is Mr. Modi planning to navigate all the priorities that he has as India's Prime Minister?
You know, this is going to be a visit that's very high on optics, obviously, but it's also equally going to be high on stakes. Officials, former diplomats have been speaking to say that, India is very conscious of the fact that this is going to require a delicate balancing act. But, most experts say this is something India is familiar with, given it did not sever its ties with Russia, even when the Ukraine war started, when we saw the kind of pressure that came, in the previous years as well. But of course, given the sort of criticism that's come in from President Trump, the fact that there is a possible trade deal hanging in the balance, with one of India's most important and largest trading partners, New Delhi will be keen to ensure that it doesn't, upset that equation and those talks. But at the same time, it's viewing engaging with Russia as essential to its own strategic autonomy. Experts have been telling me it's not an either-or situation. New Delhi very much feels it can engage with both. But from India's point of view, I think there's going to be very less focus on, India buying Russian crude, something that has been diminishing in the last few months under US pressure. The Kremlin saying it's hoping it's a blip and those numbers will jump up again. But from New Delhi's perspective, it's important to discuss defense, given that it had that, rare military conflict with its neighbor Pakistan earlier in the year. Access to Russian technology is going to be key to protecting itself, experts say. And of course, there's also going to be a big thrust on trade ties. Trade between Russia and India has grown fivefold in the last few years. But with that, the trade imbalance has also ballooned to nearly $59 billion, mostly because of India's bulk buying of Russian crude. India wants to address that and get Russia to buy a lot more Indian goods and services. And there's also talk of course, a mobility pact, which is going to be priority from India's perspective.
All right, Dasha, hearing Neha there, high optics, high stakes from the Indian side. From the Russian side, Mr. Putin last visited India in December 2021. That was 2 months before what he calls the special military operation in Ukraine. So some things have changed a great deal for Mr. Putin. What he's hoping to achieve on this trip to India?
That's right. A lot has changed over the course of those past 4 years, and the Russian president now traveling to India is an indication and a very strong signal to the Western countries from which Russia has diverted its foreign policy as well as trade relationship, that Russia is not isolated. It holds a very important place on the international stage. So therefore, this visit is taking place at a time that Russia will be seeking to ensure its energy flowing to the other parts of the world, because they have been redirected from the West, and India is now Russia's second largest client, at least has become after 2022. Obviously, the Western sanctions and particularly the recent U.S. moves against Russia's oil companies Rosneft and Lukoil have been having an impact, and Russian president will likely be talking about energy flows to India as top of the agenda. Another very important issue here to keep in mind is defense cooperation. We have been hearing that Russia is likely to offer S-400 air defense systems to India, as well as to have some more deals on the joint cooperation on the Su-57 fighter jets. And Russia has history of being the #1 supplier of weapons to India. We actually have recently seen the State Duma of Russia ratifying the treaty with India on the delivery of weapons, as well as more military technical cooperation. So a lot on the agenda for the Russian president, but obviously trade diversification, energy and defense are top of the agenda.
Oh, thanks for that. Dasha Chernyshova in Moscow and Neha Poonia there as well, covering the story for CNA for us in New Delhi.